Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the most amazing open-world action games ever made, and its map is full of so many hidden items and quests that are super easy to miss. The sheer variety in content alone guarantees that no two playthroughs will ever be the same. But before you even get into those things, you must first understand that Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't play like your typical third-person cover shooter, even though it shares many of the same gameplay mechanics. In this beginner's guide, I will give you guys a spoiler-free education on some of the best practices and techniques for getting the most out of RDR2's single-player story mode. If you want a beginner's guide for Red Dead Online, I've actually already done a video on that, so feel free to check it out. The first thing you need to know as a beginner in Red Dead Redemption 2 is that anything can happen at any time while you're out roaming the open world. Once that intro plays out in the snowy mountains, you're pretty much on your own, and you have to keep an eye out for things like armed robbers, ambushes, wild animals, and strangers who might try to steal your horse or cheat you. Most of this stuff will happen while you're traveling, and while the game does offer a cinematic mode, I don't think it's a free autopilot. You can and certainly will be robbed while you're in cinematic mode, especially if you're crossing lots of bridges or lightly polluted areas. Keep your head on a swivel and always have a good rifle or repeater pre-selected in the weapon wheel. You don't need to walk around with an unholstered weapon all the time, as that will arouse suspicion and make NPCs more hostile, but it is a good idea to have your highest DPS weapon ready to draw at all times so you can react to bandits as well as cougars alike. The next bit of advice I have here getting started is to take it nice and slow. Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't the kind of game where you continuously run from point A to point B just to grind out side quests and collectibles. Although many people do unfortunately play it that way, you don't have to. I often hear new players complaining about how slow paced the game is, and the fact that nothing really happens until after your first 20 to 30 hours. Well, that's just how it's designed. You have to understand, this is an interactive Western movie, and it's all about the atmosphere as well as attention to detail. Look around, take in the sights, hunt some animals, do some stranger missions, craft some tonics, acquire new weapons and customize them, play minigames. There is so much stuff to do, so many ways to familiarize yourself with the world. Stop playing Red Dead Redemption 2 like it's another generic open world action game, because simply, it is not. And speaking of doing stuff, don't miss out on all of the side quests. These come in the form of stranger missions, character-specific missions, bounties, debt collection, hunting, and more. Because some of the missions have prerequisites that you must meet before the mission's triggered, it is very easy to miss many of them. Either you have to meet a certain character beforehand, or be in a specific location at a specific time. There are also entire guides dedicated just to the side missions in Red Dead Redemption 2. A lot of these have their own subplots, and you might even get some interesting rewards if you follow each storyline to its completion. Just like Red Dead Online, you'll need some gold bars and cash to buy stuff in the story mode of RDR2. And while you can make some decent cash by turning in wagons to Seamus at the Emerald Ranch, for example, or selling captured horses to Clay Davies at the horse fence in Clemens Cove, the quickest and easiest way to make lots of money is by doing and hunting down the treasure maps. You'll find these stashed away in lockboxes, trees, ditches, and various other locations around the map. In the case of the Jack Hall treasure, you can buy your first map from a man called Maximo through a random encounter near Flatneck Station. Treasure hunts have multiple stages, and at the end, you're rewarded with these gold bars in which you can sell them at the fence for cash. Completing all treasures should reward you with over $16,000 in cash, which is a lot of money in the single player mode. I highly recommend utilizing the RDR2 interactive online map if you're planning to hunt down all these treasures, because it is a huge time saver compared to just wandering around hoping you stumble upon it. Now, before we continue the rest of this guide, you also need to understand how your cores work. You have 3 of them, one for health, one for stamina, and one for Deadeye. Health is the raw amount of damage you can take before dying, stamina decides how far you can run and swim, and Deadeye is drained whenever you go into Deadeye mode. Each of these stats has a central core surrounded by a ring or a bar, and as you do physical activities and take damage, your rings and bars will be drained first. Same goes for Deadeye. Once that ring is completely drained, your core will begin to drain. The rings can recharge over time, but the cores will have to be refilled either with food or other special items to fortify your core. And even if you don't do anything, your cores will slowly drain over time anyways. So I recommend you hunt some alligators in the swamps and season their big game meat with mint to fortify your health core. Fortification also increases the core value, and it prevents it from draining over time. Always collect herbs like thyme and oregano as well, so you can make seasoned big game meat at any time. Later in the game, you should definitely rely on tonics rather than chewing tobacco, for example, and alcohol. Tonics can also be crafted at a campfire, just as you can cook meat, provided you have the necessary plant extracts. Okay, now that you know how to keep your cores from draining away, let's talk about firing back at the bad guys. Because RDR2 has lots of bad guys, they're hidden around every corner, and you need the absolute best in 19th century gunsmithing to take them out. Aesthetics and upgrades also factor into the equation a little bit, but for beginners, it's important to pick the highest DPS so you can familiarize yourself with the shooting mechanics of Red Dead without getting killed in shootouts. Giving yourself the best chance in the gunfight is so important so that you don't lose a bunch of money early on, and yes, just like GTA, you will lose a bit of money whenever you die in Red Dead. So which guns are the best for beginners? I would personally focus on long arms rather than sidearms like revolvers and pistols if I was a beginner. The pump action shotgun, the Lancaster repeater, and bolt action rifle are all excellent choices depending on whether you're fighting at close, medium, or long range. If you want to do some sniping, either the rolling block rifle or the Carcano rifle will do. Although I do prefer the Carcano for its higher faster rate, faster reloads, better damage, and overall better DPS. Don't forget to buy specialty ammo for situations where you're fighting stronger enemies as well. Express and high velocity ammo are my go-to, and they can be crafted at a campfire. Split point ammo is the cheapest way to get a little bit of a boost for your ammunition, as it requires no additional crafting materials, and it even offers a slight accuracy boost over regular ammo. However, you can't craft it in bulk and can only carry 100 to 150 rounds of the stuff at any given time. So if you're okay with sitting through the annoyingly long crafting process and watching Arthur craft each individual split point bullet, go for it. Apart from the gunsmith, you can also find cool weapons for free that are scattered across the world of Red Dead Redemption 2. Remember that interactive online map that I mentioned earlier? Not only does it show treasure locations, but it also shows every single bounty, legendary animal, and weapon type, and you can filter all these items based on their category or simply look them up in the search bar. This map is going to make your search for weapons a whole lot easier here. My favorite weapon to find early on is the semi-automatic shotgun, which can be found in Watson's cabin, north of Valley View and west of Wallace Station. You go into the underground cellar of the old lady Mama Watson, who's all alone in her cabin, and you can find this weapon. Now, some of these collectible weapons require you to also complete a mission before you can get them, like the one in which you're hunting down 4 legendary gunslingers from the old days of the Wild West. Now, once you've gotten your weapons, don't forget to maintain them from time to time. You'll need gun oil, which can be found by looting the bodies of enemies, but it can also be purchased from the gunsmith. If you don't maintain your weapons and they continue to get dirty, there is a damage drop-off and overall performance drop-off. Your weapons will also lose range, fire rate, and reload speed as they keep degrading further over time. I've already mentioned Stranger missions before, but let's take a deeper look at what they represent. Stranger missions are shorter and simpler than most story missions, but they can often provide some exclusive rewards. Now, not only that, but you'll also have the chance to improve your honor and gain some extra cash in the process. And some of these have really interesting stories, like the one in which you find a group of circus performers who have lost 3 of their animals.
My animals, they escaped, and now I'm buggered. Listen, friend, help a fellow out, would you? I'm beyond desperate. If you see any of them, will you bring them back here?
If I see a tiger or a lion or a zebra, just...
The rest of this multi-stage mission has you hunting down these missing creatures. We have a zebra, a lion, and a tiger. I won't spoil the whole thing, but let's just say that 2 of these animals aren't what they were made up to be, while one of them is, in fact, the real deal. And now, let's talk about looting. Whether you come across a dead enemy, whether the enemy was killed by you, or even someone else, you'll be able to loot that body. And you'll know you've looted the body or not by looking at the icons on your minimap. Unlooted corpses are marked with a black X on your minimap, and once you've looted the corpse, it will turn into a light gray X. Looting doesn't provide much cash because enemies usually aren't carrying any more than a few cents, but they do have provisions, ammo, and other trinkets like pocket watches, which can also be sold at the fence for some extra money. Sometimes you'll even find gold nuggets on a dead body as well. Just understand that looting someone who tried to attack you first won't result in a penalty to your honor, but if you try and loot an innocent person who was killed by an animal or someone else who was lying there for a long time, you will take a slight honor penalty for doing so. And just like you, your horse also has a health and stamina core, which will run down over time as it takes damage and sprints. Make sure to carry food for your horse and bond with it to increase its stats. Horses love carrots, apples, oat cakes, and hay. I also recommend carrying a couple bottles of horse reviver at all times so you can revive your horse and get it back up if it falls down after taking a lethal amount of damage. Otherwise, you might end up losing your precious horse that you bonded with since the beginning of the game. Horses also have whistling ranges and might get injured during missions or run away after getting scared. So it is a good idea to bring a backup horse with you and keep it within whistling range so it will respond if your main horse runs away or if it's incapacitated. At the start of the game, in Chapter 2, next to Dutch's tent, you'll find a donation lockbox and a ledger. The donation box is a story item with no direct gameplay influence other than an achievement that you get for donating $250 to it. But the ledger can be used to purchase various improvements for the gang's camp using your own funds as well as camp funds. The most important upgrades are for the provisions, ammo, and medical wagons to improve the variety and quantity of resupplies available at these wagons. Next, I recommend upgrading Arthur's wagon for $325 to get a fast travel option. Finally, you should buy some leather working tools for Pearson so he can craft more advanced satchels for you. Another thing worth considering here is if you travel a lot around the map is specialized outfits for different weather types. Extreme hot and cold weather will drain your cores faster, so you should definitely carry separate hot and cold outfits on your horse for these types of unique situations. You can get these from the trapper or even buy them from a store in the city. At camp, you can save custom outfits onto your horse as well, so you'll always travel with these on you. Now the game won't tell you this, but you can get one of the best horses as early as Chapter 2 by taming the wild white Arabian horse, which can be found all alone on the northwest side of Lake Isabella. It's got an excellent top speed, it accelerates well, and it will always stick by your side once you get it to level 4 bonding. Taming the white Arabian is harder than taming most other wild horses, and you have to try your best not to spook it while you're approaching it. Later in the game, once you have more money, you can also feel free to buy other good horses, like the Missouri Foxtrotter at the Scarlet Meadows stable, which will set you back a nifty $950, but it does have a slightly higher top speed than the Arabian, so that may be something you're interested in obtaining. One of the most underrated aspects of the single-player story in Red Dead Redemption 2 is Arthur's journal. This updates every single day, and it's a collection of Arthur's memories and experiences in his own handwriting, accompanied by artistic sketches of things like locations and animals that he finds interesting. If you want an insight into Arthur's history with the gang, what he thinks of other gang members, and how he perceives the changing world around him, I highly recommend taking a look at the journal from time to time. Depending on the animals you discover and the choices you make during certain missions throughout your playthrough, your Arthur's journal might actually read differently from that of another player's journal in-game. And finally, let's talk about the honor system here. You already know that the game rewards you with honor for positive deeds and takes away honor for crimes you commit. What you may not know is that the honor system also affects how some key events unfold later in the story. The outcomes are ultimately the same, but they are presented very differently depending on your honor. And for most people, I'd recommend the high honor playthrough first so you can see Arthur at his best. Or if you so desire, feel free to go for that low honor playthrough and be a true outlaw. It's your game after all. You can make the rules. That's the best thing about Red Dead Redemption 2, and the main reason why you need to at least do 4 different playthroughs to experience all the possible outcomes. But like I said, I don't want to spoil too much. If this is your first time playing the game, I think you should limit your consumption of RDR2 vids until you actually finish the story, because it's been nearly 6 years since the launch of the game, and even though it's sold over 64 million copies to date, there are still plenty of gamers out there who haven't experienced this unbelievable and 10 out of 10 story. If you look up Arthur's story or the honor system on YouTube, there are plenty of video essays out there that will spoil the ending for you, and so it's best that you experience those moments by yourself for the first time, because afterward, you'll wish you could forget everything, go back in time, and do it all over again. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of these videos. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios, amigos.